Todd, what is the first unwritten rule of motorcycling?
Do you want me to answer?
Keep the rubber side down. Our goal at Best Motorcycle Roads is to make your next motorcycle trip the best it can be. Well, the bottom line, Todd, as we talk about the unwritten rules of the road is just if one person has a bad time, it's just not a great ride.
Yeah.
So we've got some things to talk about, the unwritten rules. We'll talk about some maybe like etiquette, road rules, group dynamics. I just thought we'd kind of go through the whole gamut. So,
Yeah.
But it really, we mostly talk about group ride dynamics. So when we're talking about that, that's why etiquette matters, because you really do want everyone to have a good time.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
We're all here doing what we're doing, and it's just supposed to be fun. So I guess maybe, do you have any thoughts on just like as you're riding, like what would you say like some of the unwritten rules are, maybe some that people know? And
Yeah, I think number one would probably be the wave.
Right.
When you're passing other motorcycles coming the opposite direction, give them a wave, whether it's, the two fingers,
Yeah.
whether it's a thumb,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do, but acknowledge.
I mean,
we're out here having fun as
exactly.
well. Yeah.
It's just kind of that. It is definitely an unwritten rule, but just waving at other bikes, and some people do it, some people don't.
Right.
And that's whatever, right?
We do it.
I think they say, that Harley riders only wave to Harley riders. BMW's riders wave to no one because it's unsafe to take your hands from the handlebar. And Gold Ring riders are so friendly, they wave at everybody. So,
with both hands.
Right. So, what else you got?
Well, let's talk about maybe passing.
Okay.
And safe, passing safely in groups. We usually generally ride with 4, 5, 6 riders. So, for the most part, we always wait until there's a great big opening, so that we can all pass at the same time, because it really kind of breaks up the group and causes more trouble if 1 or 2 riders pass and then the rest of the group is stuck behind.
Right.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I get mad about it because I like that my camera's running. Then I don't like to have cars in my.
I see. Yeah.
But I think also too, it's we're not super aggressive riding, so that's the hard part and some people aren't really always wanting to pass so much. So I think some people have a propensity to pass and some people don't.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the trouble. I think the other thing about passing that's hard is and I think we'll talk about this a little bit too, but you want to kind of keep together though, because so you're not as far apart, because what I've seen happen is then cars sometimes get frustrated if we're not going the high speed. So, this is all kind of elements of passing, but when your lead biker is keeping a pretty steady pace, usually you want the lead person to have some sort of cruise control. That way you have kind of a constant, whatever speed you're going to ride at.
Right.
Because then that causes, you want the lead rider should have that and their GPS. They're kind of the map leader, right? You're just following them no matter what happens. And then that causes a little bit less effort on some of the passing stuff. And if you keep it tight, then maybe because what I find now is we're riding and once in a while we're getting past because people are going so fast in cars. And we're not going so fast. So I think it's just hard. You got to keep an eye on everything, and I guess if the person in front of you passes, as long as you're comfortable with that speed, that you should probably try to get past and get up there when you can, just to keep everything together.
Yeah, that's a good point. And truly, I don't mind if cars pass us.
No,
as long as we're staying in a group, that's fine.
I'm just thinking that what happens sometimes is cars get in the middle of you, and then you're just knock it off, what are you doing?
You can see we're together.
Yeah, so, but and then that goes with kind of the same concept as really lane sharing too, and that staggering lane sharing. You've talked about that before, I guess.
Yeah, first of all, it's for safety that we stagger.
Right.
One in the left part of the lane, one in the right part of the lane, and then just work your way back like that. Because sometimes if, somebody has to stop quickly because of something in the road or someone's pulled out, you need to have just that little bit of extra passing room in case you're not on the brake quite as fast and you pass a motorcycle in front of you.
What you're talking about is, generally speaking, we stay in one lane, in the same lane.
Yeah, I should have explained
No,
that
that's
better.
okay. It's fine. And then you generally stagger, so maybe it's not, so one bike's kind of in the left half of the one lane. The next bike would be in the right half, left, right. And that's that extra space I think you're talking about. Now, more experienced riders, a lot of really big group rides, they're really pretty tight because when you're riding with a few hundred bikes or even 20 bikes, I mean, if you don't keep it tight, you're going to be a mile long, you know, with no problem. So for us, it's not quite as important to be like super tight. But when you're super tight, I mean, you really have to be paying attention. You almost really just need to be paying attention to the bike in front of you, and that's it. But I think what we're talking about is just kind of keeping a little more stagger, a little more space. So if the bike you're right in front of you happens to slow down fast, you've got a little more buffer. And I've used that a number of times where I've passed. I would have hit him if we were like lined up.
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah, in mine. I mean, we've had a couple close calls. I can think of a time, I don't remember exactly where we were, but one of the guys came up pretty hot and heavy, didn't notice the turn. Maybe they were looking down at the map, and we were turning, and it was tight. I mean, went by, and if they wouldn't have been staggered, they definitely would have hit the person in front of them. And then we've had a couple close calls, I know, where someone has went off the road, you know, and then you just got to keep your head on a swivel from that way. And then we'll talk about some more headset stuff in a little bit, but that's where those headsets come into play too, where you can instantly tell people. And in the first case, what we talked about, where we're almost collision, the person that almost collided did not have a headset. You know? Right. It's a big deal for us now. I mean, I think
it really is,
especially as we get older.
Just because we start talking about the turns coming up.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard.
We need to stop for gas. I see one right here. Let's go here.
That's a great point too. Yeah. So that kind of leads itself into like what I guess I would call group ride dynamics, and you've said this a number of times. You just ride your own ride. I mean, right? I mean,
yeah, you certainly don't want to push yourself and to feel like you're having to go faster than you're comfortable with. That'll make you tense. That'll make you not enjoy the ride. That'll, it just wears on you. So, exactly, just ride your own ride. The group generally will see if you're falling back, they'll fall back.
Right.
They'll wait. It's not important to get there first. It's important to get there together and in one piece and feeling good.
And there's been a number of rides where I think, like, especially if we're going longer rides, where like the helmet communicator might die, the battery or something. So the kind of unwritten rule too here is like, every time you're going to make a turn, then you're waiting for the group to get there. Yeah. And so we do that too. And that's kind of the lead person's job, I would say, is to make sure that you can see everyone, that everyone knows which way you're turning. And a little less important now that we have the headset communication, but yet still important. I mean, that was the old unwritten rule. And I remember, and that's kind of, I guess, what you'd fall into, like regrouping protocol, maybe just so far, if you're going to make a turn, if you're going to make something that's not completely obvious, just make sure that everyone's there. It takes 10, 20 seconds. Yeah. And then everyone's comfortable.
Yeah, and generally I've seen you'll put on your hazard lights, you'll get off to the side of the road.
If there's traffic.
And there's traffic, and everyone will sort of fall in. And when they catch up, they'll just fall into the back, sit, and then we'll wait until we can go.
Exactly. Yeah. We've had a couple times where someone wanted to check their oil, like just little things you just don't know. And, or little, just someone's saddlebag came open, just goofy stuff that happens. And those times are always I just remember one time we were riding it was in the Northeast Iowa. There's a forum, ADV forum, then we'd find a group ride, and this guy named Breadman, he would just he was like racing on the roads. And it was fun. Like we were doing a spirited ride, I would say. But, and he would wait, he would ride his ride and go fast and wait at the next turn, and then we'd go because he was the only one that knew where we were going. But it was just perfect idea where you can still ride your own ride. No one's mad. That's why they do it that way. And then they wait for you, and then you go again when it's time. And it was just a fun thing. They call him Breadman because he used to drive a Wonder Bread truck and deliver. So that's why he's called the Breadman. So
makes sense.
Breadman, if you're listening, it was a good ride back then. So it was an interesting time. That was when I learned we had sport bike, sport touring bikes. And Breadman had an FJR, and I was riding the Honda ST 1300, and then my brother-in-law at the time was riding the Concours. And all three of those bikes, they were always saying how the FJR was the best handling bike, the Concours was the fastest bike, and the Honda 13 was just a mediocre bike, couldn't win at anything. And it was just really interesting because that day, that's where Honda is so interesting because they don't win on paper always, but it was all three of those bikes were just the same when you were riding them on the road. If you looked at the numbers on paper, the FJR was a better handling bike, and the Concours was a faster bike. But that ST1300 just stayed up with them just as well,
Yeah.
and the real riding. So it's just always an interesting time when you think about that kind of thing.
And I think
so.
the ST had a larger tank than
It
probably
had a
all of
huge
them.
tank.
A giant tank.
That would be probably the thing it won on. But
Yeah.
I also reflect back to the days before we had the Communicators, and we were, it was so hard because you had maps on the tank, and you were trying to look, and it was not that much fun. I mean,
Yeah.
the person in lead sucked because they were always looking at the map and trying to figure out which direction was next, because you literally only had a paper map, and you're trying to read it, and I don't know. So I've enjoyed that a lot since we've been riding, just getting to the GPS, because
Yeah.
you just don't have to think.
And looking down at that map, I remember so many times, accidentally riding off the side of the road. All of a sudden you're on the shoulder.
Well, and so many times I think we were trying to ride back roads and these kind of things, and oh my gosh, how much better it is now. But
Yeah.
the last one that's kind of in that is just making sure and we've talked about this before, everyone's fuel stop and distance and comfortability with riding that far. We've got a guy, I know he can ride 200 miles. He swears he has to get gas at 150 miles, Mike. So, but that's fine. That's just his comfort level, right? We know that when we hit 150, we better start looking for gas. So, yeah.
Probably look before that.
So then that brings us to gas station stops. And so generally, like how we usually handle it is when you pull in, everybody gets gas first right away, and then find a place to park, I would say.
Yeah. Sometimes we pull into a gas station that maybe only has 2 pumps. So, we'll just kind of get in line, fill up, and then go park off to the side of the gas station and have, something to drink, something to eat, refresh, stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that's the time to make sure you get off your bike, get a little stretch, get a little water, whatever you need. And if you're doing snacks or whatever, just kind of get to that soon so that maybe you're not trying to, maybe I should go in and go grab it. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But I would also say just think about how when you're leaving this gas station too, because I don't know, like it's nice to everyone park together, and so that you kind of, I always say that we kind of generally for the day will stay in the same order, so that because it's easier for that person in the front to be seen, because everybody's headlight looks a little different, this, that, you have some lights in certain spots. And I would just say it's nice to have the same order too. So we're just thinking about that. So when you're leaving, you're not trying to I don't know.
Who's going next?
Yeah. Oh, no, no. You go. No, you go. So.
Yeah.
I think it's always nice to just kind of be a little bit, and try to double up on parking spots. In some of these places, they don't have as many parking spots. So don't stretch 5 parking spots out when
for 3, 5 bikes. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 2 will do.
Yeah.
Just being cognizant to the others that are around us too. So.
Yeah, we generally at least put 2 bikes in a spot. Sometimes we've done 4 bikes in a spot.
Well, that's
front and back,
when you have to, right?
Yeah.
But and I think it matters where you're stopping. But yeah. So.
Yep.
And then I guess we don't need to go into full evolution of every communicator that we've had, because we've had everything from wired communicators all the way through that had a push to talk radio button on them to
walkie-talkies.
Walkie-talkies and all that jazz. But really, it's just, man, that's one of the things I know that we've talked a lot about, and really feel like I don't know that I want to ride alone without one.
Yeah.
I don't want to ride with nothing. I like to have something going, music or something. So maybe that's just my ADHD, but I think that's really changed our group rides a lot.
It totally has.
Yeah. And then one other thing that's kind of fun since the evolution, I think, on the Sena 50s is the mesh connection for us. For one, it's much easier to connect. It's just simple now.
It's super simple.
But what's really been fun is sometimes when you get in these bigger areas where there's bigger group rides, it's you connect to other people's headsets as you drive through sometimes.
Oh,
and
right.
that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
For both reasons. One, sometimes when people realize that they're on it, and sometimes when they don't. And it's just it's been interesting. There was a couple times when we were riding through Sturgis, of course, that was that way. When we were down in April on the Eclipse ride, we ran into a group, and it was kind of fun, just banter back and forth. And then there was one ride this summer that they didn't know we were listening. It was just kind of funny because
were they talking about you?
No, they were bickering with each other.
I thought they were saying, "Look at these 2 idiots behind us."
Who's this moron? But it really does help you stay connected and focused. And like we mentioned earlier, hey, we're turning, right turn in a mile. Does anybody need gas? Are we okay? Hey, here's a gas station. If it's a good place to stop, boy, that was, it was literally like a finger pointing at the gas tank, and that was the big thing. And then, if you're 3 bikes up, I don't see you
Right.
pointing at your finger at your gas tank.
Yeah.
So
And when there was objects on the road, you were sticking your foot
Yeah.
out and pointing, with your
did
toe.
work, but it wasn't as quite so, especially when there's like gravel on the road, like
Yeah.
little things in corners and this, that. So
Yeah.
the last thing I thought would be fun to touch on is the new Sena 60s that just came out. They are orderable now. And I think it's going to be one of these things that sounds great on paper, but not so much in function. And the reason why is so they still have a mesh in the 60s, but now they've also added this additional feature. And that additional feature is like, it's a phone app actually that connects to your phone. So instead of using the mesh network, what they've got is one that's for, that kind of broadcasts over a phone, like the app.
Like over a cell phone?
Yeah.
A cell
So
tower?
you install the Sena app. Well, it'd be using your data.
Oh.
Is what it is. And so basically, you have to have the app running and you have to have it connected to the 60S. So they still do have the mesh intercom. And they've got a new version of that that's supposed to be better. But now they've got what they call the Wave intercom. And the Wave is this phone app. So you basically don't connect to each other's headsets. You connect to the Sena app. Then it uses the data on your phone, and then you connect. So in theory...
So there's no distance requirement?
None.
Oh,
in
that's
fact,
great.
like one of the things I'd like to try sometime on it is a shotgun start on one of our rides.
Yeah.
And so let's just say we're all leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning.
From wherever you are.
From wherever the hell you are.
Yeah.
And then we'll still talk, just like you were.
Yeah.
And then have a destination. But here's the caveat, right? Like, how many times do we have crappy cell service when we ride? It's like every time, Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm just trying to really figure out how it's going to work because there's tons of times where we have no data whatsoever. I mean, that's why we always recommend when we're talking about GPS is download your maps ahead of time, right? So I'm just curious. I'm skeptical that this is going to work that well yet because...
So it's a new way to do a conference call, like a simpler way to do a conference. Instead of calling each person's phone number.
It's essentially voice over IP in your
and
is what it really
okay,
is.
Yeah.
It's a Skype call, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you want to think of it that way. So the only logical solution to this is put a Starlink on the motorcycle.
There you go.
But it'll be interesting. I'm curious. I don't know when we'll start with the 60s. We'll have to have more than one person have it. It'll be fun, though, because... what I think will be fun is one of our riders, Chris, is coming from Chicago, and we're here in Iowa. So, and many times we'll meet him on the first day from somewhere, and that's going to be cool.
Yeah, because you can talk to him as soon as he leaves his garage.
The whole
Sure.
time. Yeah, so I'm excited about it. I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I like the idea.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah. So, I guess any other thing, Todd, from final takeaways? We kind of started this as unwritten rules of the road. This is just kind of group riding etiquette, that kind of thing.
Not that I can think of. I think we covered kind of what we wanted to. I'm looking forward to trying out my new Bon armor.
Yes.
That just came in the mail.
That'll be fun
week.
too. I think from me is just really, it's like a broken record, but it's so important is this group communication thing has really changed our rides. I think that without it, I don't think we'd probably have as many people enjoying it as much. And even our technology curmudgeons are finally coming around and really enjoying that piece of it.
Yeah.
And even though we can't get Mike to quite talk loud enough into the mic, it's really good to have everyone connected. This is a section we call the Toolkit. We share motorcycle gear review, and other riding tips. So for the toolkit, I just had two things. The Sena 60, I think, is a good one. It's a big ticket item. We're talking. I think it's $700 for the pair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a 2-pack. But as we've seen, every one of these have gotten remarkably better.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. The old mesh was mesh 2.0, or maybe they just call it mesh. I call it mesh 3.0. Super curious how that's going to work because since mesh, man, it's been a dream, right?
Yeah,
it really, truly has.
So much time saved.
Yeah, and then I just threw the old kickstand pad in for etiquette. There's a lot of fun kickstand pads you can get. It's really good to have a kickstand pad, especially when you're traveling in the hot, so you don't sink your kickstand into the mud, into like the hot
Pavement,
asphalt.
yeah.
Usually is what it is, but there are some fun ones out there, like a frog getting squished or The one I've seen a lot lately is a little like Chuck Taylor shoe that goes on the end of your, and now they have a sock that goes on first too.
Oh,
so,
nice.
so that's a fun thing for the toolkit. Nothing super toolkitty about it, I guess. If you like the podcast today, please like and subscribe. Please also sign up for our BMR Rider Alerts. It's our way of keeping you in the loop. And as always, no spam.
Keep the spirit of adventure alive, and remember, bikes, friends, and endless roads, the stories ride forever. Take care.